So thanks for joining, guys. My name is David Wright. I work at STI. And as ever, it's always great to come up to this neck of the woods. It's a beautiful city, and it's always a great event to come to. We've done this a few times, actually, under the guise of this one and IT in the Park as well. It's always really great fun. So thanks for coming to the session as well. It's brilliant to be really close, which is good, so I don't have to shout and stuff. So yeah, this presentation is based on research that we ran in 2023 about the future of work life in IT management, IT service management. And the point of the research is to understand sort of what's been happening over the previous 12 months, as well as what to expect over the next few years in relation to technology, skills, work-life balance, and well-being. And that's all in the report, okay? All that's in the report. It's quite a lot of data in, actually. It's quite pretty cool. We haven't got enough time to go through all the findings, unfortunately, right? And as you can see there, it was 5 things to know right now, but I better pull them back to 3. But yeah, loads more in that report. So the first thing to know then, again, based on the data that we've got, first thing to know is, and you shouldn't do that, is that improving experience is the core strategy. So we first wanted to understand, when we did the research, which technological advances had had the most positive impact on people's working lives over the previous 12 months. It was a multi-choice question, as much as these are. And as you can see from that result there, 27% of our respondents said that cloud computing had the most positive improvement on working lives in the last 12 months. So the likes of infrastructure as a service, software as a service, platform as a service. And you can see that followed by low-code, no-code development platforms, self-service, artificial intelligence, and chatbots and virtual agents. When we did that, I was quite interested to see that as the top one. It wasn't the first one I would have thought that would have been there. And in some way, it could be attributed to more people working remotely. More people working remotely in a hybrid, and the increased demand for cloud services as a result of that. And actually, we can qualify, which is pretty cool, because we asked the respondents where they work. And there's not many, or there aren't many sort of research things out there that try and understand what's happened post-COVID and what the work landscape looks like now. And as you can see there, 42% of our respondents said that they work remotely. 36% said that they worked in a hybrid capacity, and then 22%, just 22% said that they worked from home. So you can see that, yes, indeed, that result potentially is influenced by where people are working and how they work, which I think is quite interesting. So that selection of cloud computing. Next, we wanted to know which areas of focus our departments were looking at over the next 12 months. Again, multi-choice. And as you can see there, 75% respondents said that improving end-user experience is the main focus area for the next 12 months. And that's followed by improving employee experience, is the second one there, followed by digital transformation, staff skilling, improving security, and enabling the self-sufficient user base. So improving experience is clearly a priority for many of our respondent organisations. And to support those focus areas, we also wanted to know what technology advances organisations will be implementing in the next year or two. And as you can see there, responses, so 44% of our respondents said that they'd be looking to implement more self-service technologies, and that's followed by AI, machine learning, chatbots, virtual agents, robotic process automation, cloud computing, and cyber security technology. So what does all that mean? What does all that mean? Well, there's some pointers there to when we say organisations, what they're doing, how they're developing that sort of hybrid digital workplace as services to support. And when you look at the inflection points in the data in the report, across the results, you'll see that improving experience is a core strategy supported by secure cloud services. As a result, we've seen why. The development of intelligent AI-driven assisted self-service, the democratization of IT through citizen development and low-code and no-code platforms. And if we look closer at that green stuff, we look closer at the focus data, we can break that data down even further into our respondents' organizational role profiles to see how each area, each focus area sort of corresponds to those roles. So we've done that here. And you can see, yeah, we've split that into the data into cohorts, role-based cohorts, which are all service desk staff, service desk manager and IT manager on its own, and C-level and director level. And as you can see, each group has got improving the end user experience as the top focus area. Three groups include enabling the self-sufficient end user, improving the employee experience and digital transformation, as there are other focus areas. So there's parity there. And the C-level and director group have also got, the improving end user experience at the top. But unlike some of the other groups, they've also included their improving data and cybersecurity, cost efficiency, optimization, and improving the digital workplace service as other focus areas. So it's really, really clear that improving experience is a core strategy for the respondent organisations that took part in this. And there's a really great quote by a gentleman called Aldous Huxley. He was a writer, a philosopher. He explored the future of society and technology, influenced much of our modern thinking, which is that experience is not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. And I really like this statement. I like this statement because it's not a sort of philosophical idea, it's a call to action. Life isn't just about events, it's about our reactions, it's about our learnings, it's about our growth. And if you consider that in terms of businesses, of organizations, especially thinking about customer experience management, which is a relatively new thing if you look at CX as a core sort of practice, it's not the customer interaction that solely matters, it's also about the organization's evolution and how organizations adapt to those based on the interactions, because an organization that learns and evolves is an organization that thrives. And so when we think of that in terms of the service desk, in terms of IT service management, I think that quote really shines, the essence of that quote really, really shines. And these words for me, they push us, and when I say us, that means all of us in this room, they push us to be active participants, to find lessons in every situation, turning challenges into opportunities. And I think we all know quite well how, IT challenges are absolutely inevitable. They happen day to day. But I think the true mark of service management isn't just about aligning with best practice. It isn't just about measuring stuff. It's about the learning. It's about the proactive response. It's about how to improve. And we all know that applications and services fail. So for me, it isn't just about the resolution. It's about things like root cause analysis. It's the learning. It's the preventative measures. It's the long-term continual improvement. It's not just about managing incidents. It's not just about managing incidents and meeting SLAs. It's about harnessing our experiences to refine, to enhance, and to deliver end user and employee experience. So I think that's a really great way to think about service management per se. It's also great to think about experience management per se and continual improvement. What it's really all about. And I think if improving experience isn't the top of your agenda strategically in your organizations and strategic goals, maybe it's time to reflect on that quote and take that back to the organization and remember what Huxley said, experience is not what matters to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. Okay, so the next thing to know is that the world of work your emotional intelligence is more important than your intelligence. And that's another quote. It's a quote by a guy called Daniel Goleman. He's a psychologist and author, science journalist. A lot of work groundbreaking work really in the field of emotional intelligence. And as we'll see in our data, emotional intelligence is becoming a very important skill set. So we wanted to know about skills development over the previous 12 months, and also what skills we'll need in the near future. And when it comes to skills development to support the future needs of IT services, we found that 84% of our respondents said that they'd introduced new skills or reskilled service desk staff or upskilled service desk staff in the previous 12 months. And of that respondent group, the majority, 43%, said that their skills development had focused on hard skills. So we're talking about technical skills, and some of the feedback that we received, qualitative feedback, that feedback related to the future skills, emerging technologies that we're seeing, and the need to shift more technical work into the service desk, which is that shift left stuff. And as you can see there, 34% said that the focus was on developing softer skills, so human skills like effective communication, teamwork, and people skills. On top of that, we wanted to know if people thought differently about the skilled service desk professionals need in the next 2 or 3 years. And again, as you can see there, 68%, another high number of respondents, said that they now think differently about the skills that service desk professionals need to possess in the near future. So let's take a quick look at what skills do you think our respondents think we'll need in the next 2 to 3 years. And as you can see there, hopefully you can see it. I know the white and the pink isn't great on this one, unfortunately. But you'll see at the top there, 73% of our respondents think that the most in-demand skills or skill for the next 2 to 3 years will be emotional intelligence. And that's followed by problem solving, analytical thinking, adaptability, collaboration, and personal resilience, all soft or human skills. And it's also interesting as well to see the lowest performance skills here. And this aligns with some of the WFO, I think it's the WFO, in their studies as well. So the lowest performance skills there are leadership, technology, design and programming, and management. Really, really interesting stuff. They're all seen as diminishing skills as well by our respondents. And one more question that aligns with skills, we also asked our respondents to look at a number of relationships to select the biggest relationship impact on how organizations practice continuous improvement now and how they will practice continuous improvement by 2028. And again, I don't know if you could see that, but in the white there, that's what our respondents forecast. So the biggest impact relationship is the change from human to data-driven decision-making, and that's followed by siloed to collaborative teams and cost reduction to value creation. Now, there's more in the report. There's an awful lot of data in the report, man. I would have loved to have gone through much of that, but there's so much in it, so you'll be able to see that yourself. But I think what's really interesting, you can see the link between those relationship changes and skills like emotional intelligence and collaboration, analytical thinking and problem solving, and adaptability and personal resilience. They all match up quite well. And that sort of modern, what a modern enterprise, what a modern organization looks like as we move into the future of work as well. So I think, emotional intelligence, I think recruiting for emotional intelligence skills, with that in mind, I think it's an important consideration when we think about how organizations will change as they come to terms with the future of work as well. And that leads on quite nicely to our third thing, our last thing to know right now. And that's one of my favorite quotes, actually. It's by Thomas Edison. There's a better way to do it, or there's a way to do it better, find it. I think that's brilliant. It's simple, brilliant. And I think, as you know, I haven't seen many of the sessions today, but certainly people are talking about that we're potentially witnessing one of the most disruptive periods, I think it's fair to say, that anyone has seen since the advent of electricity. And in fact, I think artificial intelligence could be viewed as the new electricity. It offers the same sort of similar transformative potential. And in the same way that electricity revolutionized industries and daily life in the past, right now AI, in the same way, is poised to bring out similar level of change by reshaping the way that we live, the way that we work, and how we interact as well. And that comparison underscores, similarly with electricity where we are now, it underscores the idea that AI will soon become ubiquitous, foundational. And for business, it's similar to the moment when industries first harnessed electricity, fundamentally reimagining how business operations work, how they innovate, and deliver value as well. And there's a lot of talk at the moment about how AI will change work. It's a really interesting space, actually. One key driver that many industry analysts are talking about and have been talking about for a while is innovation. It's the need to innovate. All organizations must innovate, not only by adopting new technologies, but also about rethinking how traditionally they approach delivering services, both for their customers and for their employees as well. So we saw earlier that emotional intelligence, problem solving, analytical thinking, adaptability, collaboration, personal resilience, they're all seen as in-demand skills for the next 2 to 3 years. And these skills actually lend themselves as well to innovation and finding new ways to do things better. But innovation, well, it's not that easy, is it? I've got innovation in my title, right? Innovation isn't that easy. We can't just say, look, let's innovate, and as if by magic, innovation happens in an organization. As a concept, it's sort of easy to get your head around and understand, but it isn't easy to think about and do. It isn't. So what needs to be in place, do you think, when it comes to creating a culture of innovation, and why do we need to innovate as well? Well, there's a great book a really good book actually, by Timothy R. Clark called The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. I don't know if anybody's read that, but it's a decent read, right? And it answers some of those questions. So innovation needs a culture where there's a high intellectual friction and low social friction. So a place where people feel safe to challenge the norm without fear. And it's the job of a modern leader in an organization to increase intellectual friction and to decrease social friction at the same time. But there are foundations that need to be in place. And the book goes on about these foundational things. Foundations that need to be in place. And there's a direct link between inclusion and innovation as well. And to bridge that sort of gap, that link, leaders need to create in organizations, and it talks about in the book, psychological safety. What is that? Psychological safety? Well, it's a place where employees feel included. It's a place where people feel that it's safe to learn. It's a place where people feel it's safe to contribute. And a place where people feel it's safe to challenge the status quo in an organization. All that safe from the fear, the pain, the embarrassment of being marginalized and punished in some way. And to do that, you also need to understand the relationship between respect, permission, and social exchange as well. So I'm going to just run through some of these because they are very important when we think about innovation. So it's respect for an individual's humanity and the permission to interact as a human being. It's about being part of a team. So inclusion, including people in a team environment in exchange for human status without harm. Respect for an individual's need to learn and grow. So that's permission for an individual to engage with all aspects of the learning process. So encouragement in exchange for engagement. Respect, I love this one, man, this is great. Respect for an individual's ability to create value. And we've been talking about that for so long now, right? That value thing. The respect for an individual to create value. And the permission for an individual to work with independence and own judgment. So that's really about autonomy. It's about the level of autonomy with guidance in exchange for results. And the respect for individuals to innovate as well. And the permission for an individual to challenge the status quo in an organization in good faith. So that's cover in exchange for candor. That's protection without prejudice for being open. And in the near future, it's expected that there'll be an increased demand for leaders who can create that high level of psychological safety for their teams and their organizations. It's a natural consequence of organizations relying on constant innovation to keep them ahead. And when we consider those skills we sort of spoke about earlier, that IT professionals said that we'll need in the next 2 to 3 years. So that was, again, emotional intelligence, problem solving, analytical thinking, adaptability, collaboration, personal resilience. I think this model really makes an awful lot of sense. This is why some organizations will flourish and why some organizations won't. But why do we need to consider innovation at the service desk? Well, because things are changing. I don't know if that's come out very well. Hopefully it has. Yeah, it's not too bad. Because things are changing at pace. We've all seen that. Things are changing at pace. And going back to the point, we can do it better. There's been much talk, I think, over the last few years about, intelligent automation, about service orchestration, about AI, autonomous service. And certainly in SDI, we continue to see that emphasis on what next? What next for the service desk? What next for support services as we shift towards, I think, a different way of delivering services with things like generative AI, with things like data science, machine learning strategies, the holistic business, the understanding of what that really is, optimization and human-centric service, all those core to continued improvement rather than what's quickly becoming a very old-fashioned approach of spending the majority of your time in a reactive state, firefighting, and an inflexible, top-down, siloed, SLA, at all cost-driven space. So that's the traditional service desk there. That's what it sort of currently looks like. So that's traditional, it's reactive, it's manual, it's focused on things like utilization and occupancy. Does anybody focus on that at all? Which is it's crazy. I get it, but it's just crazy. So yeah, the utilization occupancy, people, adherence to process, and it's conjecture-based as well. It's analog, it's hierarchical. And the developing service desk landscape could look a little bit more like that. And you probably can't see all that stuff, but perhaps I'll be able to include this slide set, I think, maybe in that link. So this place is proactive, it's assisted, it's augmented, it's unified, it's democratized, it's predictive, it's orchestrated and self-remediating. It's a place where knowledge workers, So the shift from that industrial way of working to knowledge working, where knowledge workers really understand their business as a whole at a data level. It's a place where they unravel complex workflows, they analyze data, pattern recognition, and process understanding, and then innovating to find areas to improve, remove, and automate. Why? Well, to create business value, a better customer experience, and a happier, safer place to be as an employee as well. So I think wherever you look at whether it's the service desk, whether it's customer service, or anywhere across the enterprise, it isn't going to be about just organizations and with the most technology and the most capabilities. It's actually going to be about how well organizations integrate both technology and people, and how they continue to transform and innovate to enable both people and technology to work in harmony. I think that's the future of the service desk. That's the future of customer experience and the enterprise, and what the future of work could look like as well. So yeah, organizations will need to be able to continually improve, or they'll be left behind. And we've all seen some of those organizations. Examples there are some big brand organizations over the number of years that were unable to create that psychological safety that it needed to innovate. And I'm sure we're going to see more organizations over the next 5+ years in the same state. So don't let your organizations be one of those. Remember Edison's quote there, which I think is brilliant, by the way. There's a way to do it better. Find it. And that is pretty much it. I think that's more or less, well, I am a little bit early, actually. That's it for today. Honestly, there's so much in there. It's really loads there. And it's all really decent stuff as well, all sort of qualitative and quantitative stuff. And there's a few other bits and bobs, a few links in there as well. So thank you for listening. Look, I'm hoping that, even though it wasn't 5 things, it was 3 things, I'm hoping some of that made sense a bit. And I don't know, questions, guys, I suppose, or maybe observations, thoughts on some of that. Anybody brave enough before lunch to say yes? No worries, if it's one of them, I can do it.
Hi, so I wanted to ask the question. At the start, you said that there was 5 things, and you cut it down to 3.
Yeah.
Would you care to tell us what the other 2 were and why you took them out?
No problem. It was a difficult one to try and cut it down because there's a lot of value in the 5, right? The 5 related to well-being, and we'd run a similar well-being survey as part of it a couple of years before, so I took it out. But the well-being stuff was really, really interesting because it's stuff that we already know. It's really about, if you look at somebody working in IT, what the previous 12 months were like in relation to workload management, how busy and overworked people are, how underpaid they are, and it's what you'd expect to see. So that was one bit. Again, it's in that document, though, right? That's all in there. And the other bit, if I remember rightly, I can't remember, to be honest. I can't remember, but I'm sure it was brilliant. Right? I'm sure it was. But yeah, it's based on that report. So you'll sort of see the stuff that we would have included.
It's a quick question about historical surveys or things that you've done. Obviously, I've been in IT for more years than I care to mention, and it's just a couple of things that you were mentioning about how they see the future going with data-driven decisions,
yeah.
And what's the other one? It was out of silos,
yeah.
Collaborative teams.
Yeah.
That's been going for a long time, and we've never, ever got there, as far as I can tell.
True.
I was just wondering if you had any other historic surveys to compare where people have thought it was going.
Not for that one question, believe it or not. That's a new question we've had this time. We will have next time. Certainly, you're right. I mean, if you look at the theories, we're funny enough. There's a couple of guys that were in the conference, our conference this year, and one of the speakers from Top Desk, a brilliant speaker. What's her name? I can't remember her name, but she's brilliant. Anna, is it? Yeah, Hannah. She's brilliant, and she talked about agility and agile. So if you look at the DevOps movement, if you look at all that stuff, this isn't new, right? This is out there. It's happening. Whether it works or not is another thing, but the principles and discussion are there. And she did this brilliant sort of observational thing about how to white and all that. And a question I asked directly after, because I was lucky enough to be hosting it, was, does anybody in the audience recognize that organization? And about 3 hands of about 500 went up. So I think it's about organizations come to terms with what it means. We're still stuck in this operational mindset. You're still stuck in the place where it's an SLA, it's siloed, it's still budget, related across the organization. So I think if you look at that unified thing that we talked about, You look at and this is the service desk, but this is also relates to the rest of the organisation. So, so I think that technology will have to drive that. I think COVID has had to drive it because the discussions we have are totally different now than they were to pre-COVID. But you're absolutely right, and it's astute observation. It's out there. It's getting organisations and people to realise it's out there and to start to practice it and get value from it. That's a different thing, you know. Any other questions at all, guys? Yeah.
What do you feel, David, are the biggest drivers towards the soft skills being a requirement for future? What do you think is driving
Biggest
that?
driver. I mean, you know, the obvious thoughts is that we are a soft machine. You know, we're people. We work together. We should be collaborating. We should be deriving value from the fact that we can communicate with each other. So I think if you look at historically, certainly the service desk, you know, we're very lucky because we speak to people. Many parts of IT don't. Many parts of IT, and I've been in some bizarre organisations where there are factional sort of tribal warfare between teams. So I think it's very much, you know, there's a big theme it's been on for a while, you know, but it's come to the surface a bit more about that sort of the human capacity. So putting humanity back in the systems. And I think whether if we'd done this before COVID, I'm not sure we would have got the same results. So I think the fact that we've been through that and now we've got distributed teams, there is a requirement. And if you look at the ability to communicate, you look at something like KCS and how some of those and DevOps and some of those really need people to work together and communicate. I think it's down to that. I mean, I was delighted when emotional intelligence came up. Absolutely delighted. You know, it's you know, there's one of the slides actually. I do want to talk about. Well, how on earth do you change somebody in an organisation so they become more empathetic? And there's a wonderful. I haven't got the link, but there's a wonderful TEDx talk where I can't remember the guy's name either, which is great. Where he talks about I-shaped people, T-shaped people, and X-shaped people. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's fantastic, and you can see the way that an I-shaped person, which is the guy who's gone through traditional route into education. They are an SME, they come out the other end, and they work in that capacity. That's what they do, you know? And then you look at the other end, the X, which is much more human. And I think it's a drive for organizations to really put humanity back into systems. We've had 30 years where we try to beat that out. There's nothing worse for me if you're in a service environment where you've got a group of figures acting as a you know, this intersection between people and how they communicate. You've got a set of figures there, and it just breaks. It becomes an abstract conversation. So I think it's that. I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping that is the reason for it. Anyway, and I've said this more than once. We need more hippies in IT. We need more crazy hippies. I've had enough of the experts. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyway, one more, or are we done?
You referred to emotional intelligence earlier on and just there, and I think you maybe touched on it there. How do you change the culture to get that way? How is that something you would measure?
It's a brilliant question, and it's not new. It's coaching and mentoring. So what I would have gone on to talk about is how you get somebody to recognise they need to change. You know what I mean? So if you're in a situation where you've got this less empathetic leader, manager, it's how you work with them to realise that they could do it better. It comes back to that point again. And then there's you facilitate that with coaching and mentoring, recognizing areas of improvement, putting in steps to try and achieve them, and measuring the outcomes of that. Whatever the measurements are, whatever measurements you want to put in, it's very theoretical, right? Because I've never seen that done. But when I looked into it to see, well, how, you know, if we're going to say emotional intelligence is like the top thing, well, what the hell do we do? If we've got a group of people who will, and we all know, right? If you said to somebody in work right now, you need to become more emotionally intelligent, we all know what the results are going to be, right? So it's like, well, do we go to market? And as we look to bring new people in, do we focus on people who are more empathetic and more emotionally intelligent? And for the people who are going to stay a longer term, especially some of the guys my age, how do we change the way they think a little bit so we can use emotional intelligence and coach that into them so they become sort of better citizens in an organization? So I think it's an art in its own right, and that guy I talked about, he's a leader in that space. But it takes a bit of a gulf to jump from saying this and then putting in place in an organisation. It's a bit of a gulf there, and I think we're still in a situation where we need to grapple with what that means. IT service management for me has made an awful lot of that. They've sort of concreted that into how organisations work. And not just in IT, in other parts of the business as well. So yeah, that's I think. Does that answer the question? Yeah, I think that's done, guys. Any more before we, I don't know, what's for lunch? Chicken? I don't know, chicken? I don't know. But thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Look, hopefully that was interesting. Fingers crossed. Thank you.